Flat Time House is an artist's house in central London, in inner city London, but we're not primarily thought of as an artist home. We're mostly considered as a contemporary art space. We house residencies, artists live in the house, and academics. We have an education program, studios, an archive, and an extensive exhibition program. And the house was the home of a very unusual conceptual artist called John Latham. He lived there from 1983 to 2006. He was born in 1921 in Maramba in Zambia. And his career is long and it's very diverse, hugely influential, but a lot of the artists that he influenced often had much more exposure and much more recognized than he was in his lifetime. And he's been described as the only true radical artist of post-war Britain. Very, very unusual character, regarded as being very difficult to understand. So I'm going to give a kind of overview of a lot of his work, but you're probably wondering, like, what is flat time? That's very hard to describe in 15 minutes. But essentially it comes down to two key tenets. One is that the universe is structured according to time rather than space or matter. So everything is an event. And the other one is a rejection of hierarchical forms of knowledge and authorities of knowledge, what he called received opinion. So I often use this statement to undermine myself when I'm teaching. Senior academic institutions have been defrauding the public and students for 300 years. They're not concerned with education, still less with the truth. They're run for the benefit of the staff. So we have this inherent contradiction in that we're looking after the legacy of an artist who disagreed with authoritative figures of knowledge and disagreed inherently with the idea of heritage. An example of this is a work that's in the MoMA collection in New York called Art and Culture Still and Chew. And for this work, with his students at Chelsea College, he got the book Art and Culture by Clement Greenberg out of the library, got his students to tear pages out of the book, to take one each, eat it, spit it out into a vial. He added enzymes, distilled it, and then returned a pure spirit of art and culture to the library, which he then lost his job. So he's really very well known for works with books. And these are important because books for him are a symbol for received opinion. So he wants you to approach them in an intuitive manner rather than being able to read through them. He didn't reject knowledge, he just wanted you to question it. And so he's famous for these assemblage works, these sculptural works, and then he also works in other media such as polyurethane foam with the glass. This is a vacuum in a glass sphere within a vacuum within a glass sphere. This is a live piranha tank. This is some spray works that he made in Pittsburgh. That's the Long painting. This is spray work on canvas. Originally, early on in his career, his gallerist wanted to promote him as a colour field painter, but he completely rejected that and went in purely conceptual. Modified canvases, mechanized roller paintings, early film works. This one of his films was the first ever film work proposed for the Tate collection, which they didn't know anything what to deal with it. They'd never had a film before. This film, Speak, actually was given a soundtrack by Pink Floyd, but he rejected it and made his own with a bandsaw. He made video works, concrete poetry, theatre, performance events. Here he is burning a tower of Encyclopedia Britannicas. He did this again in Pittsburgh in mid-90s. This performance that he probably couldn't get away with now, shooting flares over the top of the Houses of Parliament. This is his crashed car where he nearly killed himself, exhibited in 1970 with the x-rays of his recovery. He made theoretical proposals. A lot of his archive is refining of his ideas, this stream that went through from 1954 right through to 2006, where he refined his ideas more and more and more over time, eventually becoming known as Flat Time. He made artist books. This is an engineering project for capturing energy from tidal power. He made this with Imperial College. This is a series of mountains in the lowlands of Scotland called the Five Sisters. This is a land art piece. He was working directly with the Scottish government. They employed John Latham to decide what to do with these eyesores, the spoil of the 19th century shale mining industry. What John Latham proposed was that they had them scheduled as national monuments, which they remain to this day, and they're used for all sorts of different activities. So this project, it may be unusual to hear that he was employed by a government, this crazy, eccentric man. But he was he was a founder member of a group called the Artist Placement Group. This was founded by his partner, Barbara Stavini, in 1966. And using some of John Latham's ideas and Barbara's enormous drive, they worked with the government, they worked with huge British corporations like British Steel, employing artists within them, the idea being to introduce creative thought within their bureaucratic structures. They went on to work, through the influence of Joseph Beuys, work with the West German government. So how to bring all this together and bring all of these ideas together in a small terraced house in central London, in inner city, in Peckham. John and Barbara split up in the late 70s, and they remained good friends. John moved to Peckham, Barbara moved a few streets over, where she still is. At the time, Peckham was very poor, quite impoverished. That's why they moved there, because it was cheap. Of course, the area has gentrified. The gentrification is actually integral to what actually happened to Flattime House, though, because in the late 90s, there was a scheme to use the creative potential in that area to regenerate that street. So an artist on that street who had a studio just here, Anthony Gormley, was commissioned to make bollards on the road. Another artist was commissioned to do lampposts and murals. And John Latham was commissioned, there was a discussion about him making a giant book monument for Peckham Rye Common. So this never happened. But in the process of this, John decided that his house actually was a monument. It was an artwork. It led him to reconsider the activity that had gone on in his house. And so as a signifier to this activity, he made a book sculpture which transitions from the inside of his house to the outside, as a signifier to the activity going on inside. Originally, this was intended to go vertically through all 3 stories of the building, but through planning issues and things like this, boring stuff, it ended up being cantilevered through a single plate of glass in the front of the old shop building. So at this point, John anthropomorphized the space. He decided that each room in the house corresponded to the attributes of a different part of the body, and these different attributes correspond to different modes of being. So the first space he called the mind. You transition through the mind, you go into the office where I work. So you'll see me if you come and visit the space. This is where we house the archive, and you'll see me doing my emails. This is a space for rational thought. Then you go through this corridor into a kitchen space and a living space. So this is actually a functioning kitchen, and upstairs, up this spiral staircase, there is a bedroom and bathroom as well. So artists live in this house. So it doesn't look like a house, it is a house. And so if you come, sometimes there might be laundry on. If the artist isn't tidying up after themselves, there'll be dirty dishes there. And so it is actually a functioning house, and that's integral. In the rear space was John's studio. So this was where John made his artwork, and this is where it's our main exhibition space, really. So in terms of how this relates to his cosmology, this idea of flat time, John described this as a really summation of his life's work, a bringing together of his ideas up to this point. And you can think of it as the living activity. He would say that this is instinctive behavior. This is stuff that took place over a time base, he would use these terms, of about a day. So you need to eat, sleep, drink, excrete. All of this stuff happened in the organs of the building, in this living space. Then rational thought is where he did his admin, in the office, in the brain. And then in the studio, in the hand, you had instinctive production, and in the mind, intuitive production, and in the mind, this gallery space at the front, reflective, intuitive thought. In between these spaces, you have spray paint onto the walls, the shift, the transition between these different spaces. And in the back, we've got garden and artist studios as well. So the house didn't always look like this. It looked completely different when John lived there. And it's integral to the project that it doesn't actually look like it did when John lived there. You can see it's a mess, but also it would be going against what he believed to keep it as it was. We actually do have 360 recording of all the spaces. So for the last 3 years of his life, John sat on a camp chair in the front space, and people would come from local students, people would come from all over the world to talk about him and his ideas and his work. And he would tell them about flat time, tell them about his ideas. And so the family, when he died in 2006, there was no prescription at all by him what should happen to the house. The family decided that they wanted to continue in the legacy that he began in that last 3 years. And so in an ad hoc manner, it started to professionalize, it became a registered charity, and now is more organized and it increasingly professionalizes over time. And we continue to have the 4 works in the front space, which he chose almost as diagrammatic tools to explain his ideas. It's the time-based roller. We have a collection of works by John Latham, which sometimes artists choose to include in the space, sometimes not. We have his library of books. This is a small part. They're divided into books for work that he was going to chop up and books for reading. We have the John Latham archive. So people come and research this. The first archivist was actually the artist Laure Provost, who is representing France at Venice this year and won the Turner Prize. She often talks about her conceptual grandfather in her work. The archive is digitized at item level. It's fully accessible online. Anyone can view it. The archive is integral to our activity, so all artists working in the space, because it's so complex, have at least a year to research and work on it, how they're going to do a show in a domestic space and in this conceptual, esoteric land. We do educational program. We've got formal ties with King's College, Royal College of Art, Chelsea College. We do an academic journal. We reformed a new group of the APG with Barbara Stavini just here. So we're doing a tour around the country with her at the moment, doing meetings. And what we're mainly known for is the exhibition program. We work with young artists like Rory Pilgrim, who lived in the space for 6 months, academic artists like Jakob Jakobsen, who did a sound light installation throughout the space using archival material, Lena Hermsdorf, artists who haven't been shown in the UK so much. Often they have total installations in the space. She divided all the rooms of the house with large sheets of reinforced glass. We had a computer-controlled sound installation with live performance. Events are very important in the space. We do a lot of book launches. This is Dr. Saskia Steinman from Harvard Medical School talking about her neuroscience research. This is the week before last. And we encourage more high-profile artists to experiment. So Mark Shamovitz had a show at the Serpentine at the same time he was working with us. But with us, he could really try something different to what he would normally do in the space. So I just want to conclude by bringing together a few statements. So to remain living, Flat Time House requires the mind, brain, hand, and organs to all be active. It can't look like a house, it has to be a house. It needs to be active instinctively, rationally, and intuitively. And as a living sculpture or building as artwork, this isn't inherent in the material of the structure, but in the metaphorical manifestation on the activity of a human. We're not a museum of John Latham, but a museum of flat time, of his ideas and cosmology. It's our responsibility to question how his ideas are situated in society now. Thank you very much.